My mother texted me, "Let's see how long it takes you to get home." I stood alone at a deserted train station with nothing but $92 in my pocket. What they meant to break me, built a version of me they never saw coming. My name is Sienna. My parents abandoned me at a railroad station when I was 15 years old. Not by chance, not because they failed to remember. They intentionally did it. They wanted to see how long it would take me to make my way home in order to teach me a lesson. I never returned. However, they discovered me 17 years later, not because they were missing me, not because they were sorry about what they had done. They came to me because they needed authority, support, and money. And they didn't stop at guilt when I said no. My own family turned against me because of them. They propagate false information. They attempted to demolish everything I had constructed. Leaning against the car window, half sleepy, with my headphones blocking out the hum of the highway, I felt the July heat cling to my skin. Graham and Miriam, my parents, were seated in the front row, arguing about something I had long since stopped paying attention to. The road wound across miles of back roads in Alabama and continued on indefinitely. We had just been to my older sister Lena's college for the weekend. The journey had been ordinary. Lena acted as like nothing was wrong. Using passive-aggressive language, Mom is saying that I should emulate my sister. Additionally, Dad hardly acknowledged us unless he was giving us a command. I was accustomed to it. In our household, it was simply another day. One more lesson. One more exam. As the automobile slowed, I opened my eyes wide. Just off the roadway was a rusty, almost deserted train station, a holdover from another era. Dad rolled the car to a stop by two antique vending machines as he drew into the lot. He said, "Go grab me a soda," without glancing at me. I blinked and yanked down my headphones. "What?" Mom swiveled in her chair and gave me the phony smile that never made it to her eyes. "Get your father a drink, honey, and grab me some water." With a groan, I pushed the door open. As I stepped out onto the damaged pavement, the heat hit me like a wall. I didn't want to argue. In any case, it never worked. With their faded decals peeling from years of exposure to the sun, the vending machines were situated next to the station entrance. As I pressed the buttons for their beverages, I took a crumpled $5 dollar out of my pocket and inserted it into the slot. After groaning and fighting against the clock, the machines eventually spat forth a bottle of water and a lukewarm drink. With bottles in hand, I turned, anticipating that the car would be waiting where I had left it. No, it wasn't. There was nobody in the lot. My brain briefly failed to process what I was witnessing. Perhaps they were in a different location. Perhaps they were simply invisible. I stepped forward and looked around at the vacant parking spots, my breath seizing in my throat. My phone then buzzed. Mom texted me, "Let's see how long it takes you to get home." Consider this a lesson in problem solving. My stomach dropped. This was not an error. This was no joke. I was abandoned here by them. As I pressed the call button, my fingers bumbled directly to voicemail. I gave it another go. And once more, the same hollow beep reverberated in my ear each time. I was standing there, holding the Coke so firmly that my fingers crinkled the plastic. The distant sound of a train horn was muffled by the pounding of my heartbeat in my ears. They had no intention of returning. I should have been shocked. I should have been devastated. Rather, a spooky silence descended upon me. They have previously pulled a similar prank before. I was locked outside during a storm when I was 13 years old because I had neglected to take out the trash. When I was 14, they punished me for missing the bus by making me walk 9 kilometers in the rain to get home from school. It was just another lesson. One more perverse method of demonstrating my throwaway nature. My eyes scanned the station. A few individuals shifted around, completely unaware of the 15-year-old girl who was standing there with nothing but her wallet and an increasing amount of anger. I had no intention of waiting for them. I refused to engage in their game. I looked in my pocket. I saved $92 from my summer work. Enough, but not much. As I walked up to the ticket counter, the elderly man hardly raised his head. Despite my internal anguish, I inquired in a firm voice, "Where's the nearest bus station?" He gestured toward the road. "Couple miles that way." I nodded and started to move. Once more my phone buzzed. Mom texted me again. "Don't you dare call your aunt. Your father says you need to figure this out on your own." The number was blocked by me. I then followed their instructions to the letter. Before a recognizable voice picked up, the phone rang again. "Sienna?" I took a deep breath. "Valerie, can you help me?" Despite my firm speech, I was collapsing on the inside. "Sienna?" Valerie asked in a worried, piercing voice. "Where are you?" I took a deep breath and gripped the phone until my knuckles were white. I was standing alone at a train station, abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me. My voice sounded uncannily steady, despite my heart thumping in my chest. "They left me, Valerie. They just drove away." A pause occurred, then a quick gasp for air. "Stay right there, sweetheart. I'm coming to get you." 17 years have passed since then. I was now looking out over the Austin skyline from the corner office of my company, Haven Developments. The streets below were humming with activity as the city came to life. However, there was just me and the past resurfacing in my office. With missed calls still visible on the screen, my phone rested on my desk. There were 52 of them. I didn't pay attention to the unidentified numbers. I focused on the only one that was important. Lena. It was a name I hadn't seen in 17 years. When I hit play on the first voicemail, my stomach turned. "Abby, please pick up. Mom and Dad found you. They need your help." I gripped the phone more tightly. That name, that voice, she continued to call me Abby, as if we were children, as if nothing had occurred. With a deep exhale, I erased the voicemail. The next one was merely in tears. By the third, her voice was desperate. "Sienna, please. You don't understand. They're desperate. Just talk to me." Before I could smash the phone against my desk, I put it down. They had located me, and I was fully aware of what that meant. 17 years ago, I left them with just a bus ticket and a desperate yearning to live. I struggled my way through college, worked 3 jobs, and slept in a moldy-smelling studio apartment. The life they attempted to destroy had been used to build every single brick of Haven Developments. They wanted to re-enter just as I was at last free. I sat down and ran my hands through my hair, trembling a little. I saw a serene, collected reflection of myself in the window. However, my thoughts were anything but. I anticipated this day. I simply didn't think it would happen today. I came across a name I hadn't spoken to in 17 years when going through my voicemails. Blake Graham, my dad. After a half-second of hesitation, I hit play. Something inside of me froze the once his voice reached my ears. "You think you're better than us now?" His voice was slurred and heavy with drink and bitterness, something I knew all too well. "We made you, Sienna. Everything you have is because of us." I tightened my jaw. He continued to babble. "You think you can just erase us after everything we did for you?" He sneered. "Well, guess what? Life doesn't work that way. You owe us." The voicemail cut off suddenly. A moment later, a text message appeared. "Your father is very disappointed in you, Sienna. We need to talk. Call us." With my chest constricted, I gazed at the message, feeling let down. At a rail station, they left me, disappeared from my life. And I had let them down now. The rage was intense. They were still the same. Not at all. I swallowed the lump in my throat and slumped back in my chair, my fingers clenching around my phone. The 15-year-old me wanted to scream as I stood there by myself on the train station. However, I was no longer 15. I wasn't lost. I wasn't alone myself. And this time, I wasn't going to run. I put out a reply to Lena after opening my messages. "Tomorrow, Denny's on F 6:13 a.m. Come alone or don't come at all." I sent it. After that, I put down my phone and turned back to face the city. I will see my sister for the first time in 17 years tomorrow morning. and I wasn't scared this time. I had already arrived at Denny's when Lena entered, looking anxiously for me. Even though she had the same high cheekbones and stiff shoulders, the years had added creases at the corners of her mouth and a small sag in her posture. She had always been the ideal daughter, playing along, complying, and smoothing things out. She suddenly appeared to be holding too many secrets, though. For a minute, our gazes locked. Neither of us made a move. Then she walked over with a lock of hair tucked behind her ear. "Hey, Abby." Before responding, I took a leisurely drink of my coffee. "I'm not Abby anymore. I'm Sienna." Her smile wavered. "Right, sorry." With her fingers fumbling with the laminated menu, she slid into the booth across from me. She remarked, "It's been a long time." I didn't respond. I merely observed her, anticipating the true cause for her presence. With a groan, she put down the menu. "You look good." I arched an eyebrow, "And you look nervous." Though it didn't reach her eyes, Lena quietly laughed. "Yeah, well, this is complicated." I leaned over and said, "No, Viv, it's actually pretty simple. You want something, just say it." She squeezed her lips together and let out a breath. "Mom and Dad, they're struggling." It was there. She didn't hold off until I answered. The words poured out, practiced, rehearsed. Dad lost a lot of money gambling. Mom racked up debt. "They're drowning, Sienna. The house is in foreclosure." I stared at her with a clenched jaw. She went on, "They need help. They need you." I exhaled slowly and deliberately. "I don't owe them a damn thing." Lena winced. "I'm not asking you to forgive them. She took in, I just want you to listen." I clenched my fingers around my coffee cup. The foolishness of it. Hear me. When I was 15, had anyone paid attention to me? At that rail stop, standing by yourself, because character building was more essential than fundamental decency, had anyone paid attention when I was shivering in the rain? I sat back against the booth, feeling a mixture of fatigue and anger in my gut. I added, "They didn't just make a mistake, Viv," in a firm voice. "They left me at a train station on purpose." She grimaced. "They came back an hour later." I interrupted. "And whose fault was that?" Like a mirror splitting in two, the air between us broke. Years of keeping quiet, of unsaid words, of acting as though nothing had gone wrong. Lena's fingers twisted in her lap as she blinked quickly. Her voice broke as she trailed off. "They thought you'd come home. They thought you'd—" With a final, "They thought I'd crawl back," I addressed her, like I always did. Her breathing was shallow as she gazed at the table. I gave a headshake. "I'm not their daughter anymore, Lena. I haven't been for a long time." Her shoulders shook, but I remained firm. I took several bills out of my pocket and placed them on the table. "If they try to contact me again, I won't be so polite." Lena continued to sit and gaze at the table. I left without turning around. That seemed to be the end of it. I was mistaken. I tried to ignore the chat with Lena by immersing myself in my work the following morning. I didn't want to let it ruin my day, even if it had left a bitter taste in my mouth. The past was the past, and I had created something tangible, something that nobody could take away from me, not even them, or so I believed. I was distracted by a loud knock on my office door. My helper Jenny waited in the doorway, her face tense with a mixture of reluctance and uneasiness. "Hey, I think you should see this." With hesitation, she took over and handed me the phone. I scowled and accepted it. Facebook was visible on the screen. As I read the words on the screen, my breath seized in my throat. "Our daughter abandoned us in our old age after everything we sacrificed for her." Another post beneath it. "We raised her to be strong, and this is how she repays us." Heartless. A gradual searing heat began to rise up my neck. As though they were the ones who had suffered, they were portraying themselves as victims. Hundreds of comments were left. I am being condemned by strangers. Some even tagged my company's page in the posts they shared. My gut churned as I read through the replies. Wow, I can't believe some kids treat their parents like this. What a disgrace. Ungrateful brat. I hope she rots alone. Money changes people. Shame on her. The phone smashed into my desk. Jenny stirred uneasily. I didn't want to show you, but it's spreading. Clients are seeing it. Some people have even left bad reviews on Haven Development's page, calling you a cold-hearted fraud. My ears throbbed with my heartbeat. There were more than a few Facebook posts involved. It was an all-out assault. I forced the quiver out of my palms and took a deep, steady breath. Who else knows about this? Jenny paused. Some of the staff, a few of our bigger clients. I think some of them are waiting to see how you respond. Slowly I nodded. Okay, thanks, Jenny. I'll handle it. I grabbed my phone and called a number I hadn't called in years as soon as she departed. The third ring was answered by Lena. Abby? She spoke cautiously. I gripped the phone more tightly. Did you know about this? We were silent for a long time. At last, she let out a breath. I told them not to, but they're desperate, Abby. I laughed without humor. Desperate people don't destroy their own children. Lena tried to say they just want help. They think this is the only way to get through to you. I sneered. By lying, by turning strangers against me. Lena remained silent. Despite her inability to see me, I shook my head and said, I should have known better than to think they'd change. Before she could continue, I hung up. Immediately after, a text message arrived. You ungrateful brat, take that post down. I gazed at the text on the computer, while a creeping, perilous serenity descended upon me. I then started typing in my personal social media account. Some people rewrite history to escape accountability. I won't let them. I threw my phone on my desk and clicked post. Did they want to fight? All right, give them a chance to fight. A couple of Facebook posts seemed awful enough to me. Then they arrived at my workplace. Monitoring our company's social media accounts, telling clients that my personal life had no impact on our job, and ignoring the innumerable messages from distant relatives who suddenly had opinions about a story they had no knowledge of, had all taken up much of the week. With caffeine and sheer resolve, I was barely getting any sleep when the intercom on my desk came to life. Sienna, Jenny said in a tentative tone, there's an elderly couple here, insisting they need to see you. The coffee I was holding suddenly tasted bitter, and I froze. Despite the fact that I already knew, I inquired, did they give their names? Jenny let out a sigh. They said they're your parents. With a sharp sigh, I forced a neutral expression on my face. Tell them I'm in a meeting. A pause. Afterwards, they're making a scene. They were, of course. I moved my chair back, put down my cup, and headed into the lobby. I recognized them as soon as I entered the doors. Miriam was in full performance gear, using a crumpled tissue to dab at imaginary tears. Graham stood next to her with his arms folded and his gaze darting over the room, as if he were looking for a fight. Miriam wrinkled her face as soon as she saw me. She screamed, "My baby!" loud enough to turn heads. You won't even talk to your own mother. My jaw tightened as I halted in mid-step. Employees muttered around us. Some took out their phones and began recording, as though the drama was being played out in real time on a reality show. The bile rose in my throat, and I swallowed it. Graham contorted his face into a grimace. You've turned into one of those people, huh? The kind who forgets where they came from. I didn't wince. Leave, now. With a stifled sob, Miriam clutched her chest as if she were about to pass out. I gave birth to you, Sienna. I raised you, and now you treat us like we're nothing. I balled my fists up. You are nothing to me. The lobby echoed with a collective gasp. There was silence for a while. Graham's face then flushed. You think your money makes you better than us? Now he spoke loudly to attract attention. Miriam began sobbing into her hands as she truly fell to her knees. All we wanted was to see you, to talk to you. But you've become so cruel. A surge of whispers swept through the audience. A few appeared uneasy. Others appeared amused. I'd had enough. With a deadly calm, I lowered my voice and took a step forward. If you don't leave right now, I will have security remove you. Graham walked slowly in my direction, while his voice dipped to a low, poisonous tone. You owe us, Sienna. We made you who you are. Miriam's tears abruptly ceased. Her eyes gleamed with something colder than grief as she raised her face. You can't erase us, sweetheart. You'll always be our daughter. With a deep exhale, I turned to face the security guard. Escort them out. Graham chuckled bitterly. You're going to regret this. Miriam straightened her clothing as if nothing had happened and got to her feet. She whispered, "Poor thing," loud enough for everyone around her to hear. Too much money, not enough heart. Their voices reverberated through the glass doors as I saw security usher them away. I ought to have seen they weren't done. This was only the start. I received a letter from a lawyer the following day. Jenny's brows were wrinkled as she laid the tiny envelope on my desk. This came by courier. It's from a law firm. I took a while to move. With a strange feeling of déjà vu, I just stared at it. One more step up? It's another attempt to pull me back into the quagmire I've been trying to avoid for years. I lifted it up slowly and tore open the cap. My heart raced as soon as I glanced at the opening few sentences. According to regulations governing filial duty, my parents were suing me. I laughed a little, without humor. Incredibly so. In reality, they were attempting to legally compel me to provide for them financially. The same folks who abandoned me at a railroad station when I was 15, who had disregarded me for 17 years, were now claiming that I'm to blame for their errors. I squeezed the bridge of my nose and dropped the letter on my desk. Jenny lingered close to the entrance. You okay? I let out a breath through my nose. Call David. I need to talk to my lawyer. After giving a nod, she vanished. David's soothing voice reached me as I was pacing my office with my phone to my ear a few minutes later. After I finished reading him the letter, he responded, "Well, technically, they might have a case in some states." My pace halted. You're telling me they can abandon me as a kid, but now I owe them money? He let out a sigh. It's rare, but some courts uphold these kinds of cases, depending on the circumstances. Texas doesn't have strict filial responsibility laws, but if they push hard enough, they could still make your life hell. I touched my forehead with my hand. Unbelievable. David stated, they're hoping you'll settle. That you'll just give them what they want so they don't drag your name through a drawn-out court battle. I gave a sour laugh. Then they don't know me at all. Just like clockwork, my phone buzzed. The name of my mother appeared on the screen. I nearly disregarded it. Nearly, but something inside of me exploded, and I hit accept before I could stop myself. I asked in a cold voice, "What do you want?" Miriam's voice was sweet and syrupy. "Sienna, sweetheart, we just want to work something out. We wouldn't have to do this if you'd just help us." I tightened my jaw. "Help you?" I spoke in a chilly tone. "After what you did to me." She sighed dramatically, as if I were being crazy. "Honey, that was so long ago. Families fight. Parents make mistakes. But we're still your parents. And we're in trouble." My hand gripped the phone more tightly. "You're not my parents. You lost that right the day you drove away." A pause occurred. Her voice then became stern. "If you fight us, we'll take this all the way to court. Do you really want that embarrassment?" The irony almost made me laugh. Did she really believe she could shame me? I could feel my rage turning into a sharp crystal, something indestructible. I said, "Try me," in a firm voice. I hung up after that. For a long time, I stood there with a steady heartbeat, not out of fear, but anger. They believed they could shatter me. They didn't know who they were up against. They then pursued my company. It was to be anticipated, following the litigation, after the spectacle on social media, after they've made every frantic effort to re-enter my life. They wouldn't stop there, of course, but when it actually hits, it still hurts, even though you know it's coming. Jenny knocked and peered in, her face tense, while I was at my desk going through papers. She said, "You might want to check your email with caution." Despite raising an eyebrow, I reached for my phone. My stomach turned when I saw the subject line, concerning allegations against you. I opened the email. Sienna, I hope this isn't true, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. We've received multiple anonymous messages claiming you have a history of financial misconduct, particularly in dealings with your family. They allege you stole money, abandoned your responsibilities, and have a track record of deceit. We value our professional relationship, but given the nature of these claims, we need some clarification. One of our largest investors was the sender. With a racing heart, I continued to scroll down. Screenshots of emails from phony accounts that all told the same tale were attached. That my own parents' money was taken by me. That their sacrifices were the foundation of my business. That all I was a liar, a phony. With my hands balled into fists, I let out a quick breath and threw my phone onto my desk. Jenny lingered close to the entrance. What's going on? I made myself inhale deeply and slowly. They're trying to destroy me. She knitted her brow. Who? I picked up my phone and dialed. Who do you think? I was speaking with one of my business partners on the phone 15 minutes later. Before he spoke, he paused. Look, Sienna, I don't want to believe this, but these messages, there's a lot of them. I said in a hurried voice. Do you know where they're coming from? Quiet, then grudgingly. Some of the accounts were traced back to an IP linked to your parents. I gripped the edge of my desk and closed my eyes. They had gone too far. They had attempted to use guilt to control me for years. They attempted to publicly humiliate me after that failed. They were now pursuing everything I had constructed. They had been wrong. This was war, that's why. I convened an urgent meeting with my public relations staff. Their expressions were solemn as they sat opposite me. They both cleared their throats. Our recommendation, don't engage publicly. Stay quiet. Let this blow over. No, I firmly answered. I'm not staying quiet. Not this time. I looked at my laptop and started typing my own statement on the keyboard. For years, I suffered at the hands of manipulative parents. When I walked away, I did so to protect myself. Now, after 17 years, they are trying to destroy my livelihood. I will not let them. I clicked post. Let them come get me. I no longer felt afraid. My phone rang with a text a few hours later. Graham sent it. You ungrateful brat. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I typed out a final message after staring at the screen for a while. If you continue, I will take legal action. This is your last chance. I sent it. No answer. I knew they wouldn't stop, though. Did they desire war? All right. I would offer them one. The following day, I was summoned to court. Jenny put a big packet on my desk as she entered my office, her face pallid. She said, "It's from a law firm, with caution." I was previously aware of the sender. I picked up the envelope and opened it slowly and carefully. My assumptions were validated by the bold official wording at the top. Sienna Blake versus Graham and Miriam Blake. The reason, disregarding state law's filial obligations. I let out an irritated laugh. Thus, this was their final action. They turned to the judicial system after direct sabotage, public humiliation, and emotional blackmail failed. Jenny hovered in the entrance. What do you want to do? With a sharp exhale, I grabbed my phone. Call David. Tell him I'm on my way. The lawsuit was laid out on the polished oak desk across from David as he sat in his office opposite me. He shook his head and skimmed the pages. He looked up and said, "They have a weak case at last. Texas doesn't enforce strict filial responsibility laws, but if they get enough publicity, it could hurt your business." I balled my fists up. Then we make it public. On our terms. David's eyebrows went up. You sure about that? I nodded, having already made up my mind. I've played defense long enough. It's time for people to know exactly who they are. I prepared my statement that evening. I didn't hold back. I was honest, the whole truth, concerning my parents, regarding the lessons they made me learn. Regarding the night they abandoned me at a train station when I was 15 and never returned. About the fact that they only came back when they were in need. The post had gone viral by daybreak. Almost instantly, the tide turned. The same strangers who had before criticized me for lacking gratitude were suddenly appalled by what my parents had done. Outrage on my part filled the comments that poured in. This is beyond cruel. What kind of parents abandon their own child and then try to cash in 17 years later? I believed them at first, but now they deserve whatever's coming to them. Suing your own kid after leaving them homeless. Unbelievable. The public's perception quickly changed. They were no longer in charge of the story. I got a call from Lena 3 days later. She spoke in a tight voice that was hardly audible. They lost everything, Abby. I gazed at the city skyline while I sat in my car. That's on them. Her breath came out shakily. They're saying it's your fault. They were, of course. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. No, Lena, it's their fault. Every choice they made led them here. She didn't argue for once. A week later, I passed the house where I grew up. There was a for sale sign in the yard. It appeared smaller than I had recalled. Nearly dead. I thought I would have a feeling of accomplishment. A victory of some sort. But I was just relieved. I didn't require retribution. I didn't require approval. I was no longer under their control. And it was sufficient. I felt free for the first time in 17 years. No burden on my shoulders. I have no stomach knots. No persistent anxiety about when they will reappear, an attempt to take me back to the past I had battled so hard to avoid. I was at home. Austin sprawled out in the warm twilight light under my balcony. As I sat with my legs tucked beneath me and a glass of wine in my hand, a pleasant breeze stroked against my skin. There was just silence now that the commotion had finally subsided. However, it seems that there was one last condition for even peace. The silence was broken when someone knocked on my door. I recognized the person before I even stood. Lena was inside when I opened it. Her eyes widened. She looked worn out. "Abby," she said, grumbling, "please." I remained motionless, whispering. "They have nowhere to go," she said. "Dad's drinking more than ever. Mom keeps saying they just need one more chance. They're still our parents." With a sad heart, I held on to the doorframe. She was still not understanding. Evenly, I said, "They made their choice." Lena's face fell flat. "How can you be so—" "So what?" I interrupted, cold, heartless. "Selfish?" Her lashes were wet with tears. "I just don't want to lose my sister over this." I took a deep breath. My throat constricted. "You didn't lose me," I muttered. "They did." With her hands shaking, Lena wiped at her cheeks and let out a stifled sob. "They just need—" I gave a head shake. "I'm not responsible for fixing what they broke." She drooped. I took a step back after swallowing the lump in my throat. "Take care of yourself, Viv." I closed the door after that. This was the first time I didn't feel bad. I sat on my balcony once more, an hour later, to see the sun set below the horizon. Their voices had been in my thoughts for years, influencing my decisions, even when they weren't there. The guilt, the dishonor, the hypothetical situations. Now, though, just quiet. It was also lovely. The only true family I had ever known was Aunt Valerie, so I took out my phone and browsed through my contacts until I found her. I wrote the following message. "Dinner this weekend. My treat." She responded almost immediately. "Finally, I've been waiting for you to ask. Mexican or Italian?" My lips formed a tiny smile. "Mexican. Extra margaritas." I inhaled deeply before looking at my call log. The statistics for my parents looked back at me like specters that wouldn't go to sleep. I hit block slowly. No more second chances. No more tricks. No more feelings of guilt. I entered and shut the door after myself. I had stopped running. I had freedom. And that's my story. In the end, I learned that the best revenge isn't loud, it's living well. It's choosing peace when they expect chaos. If you've been hurt or betrayed, know this: you don't owe anyone your silence. but you don't owe them your soul either. Set boundaries. Heal at your own pace. Grow into someone, even you can be proud of. If you face something similar, share your story below. I'd love to hear it. How did you rise above? How did you reclaim your power? Let's talk. Let's heal. Together.